We're going to talk again about mid-cap funds, considering that they're doing so well. But the interesting part about mid-cap funds is that the difference between the top performer and the worst performer is so drastic. It's not just about, investing in mid-caps. You have to pick the fund also really carefully. So we find out from Dhirendra which fund we should be picking and how we should do that. We're going to bring in Dhirendra. Thank you so much for joining us. Mid and small-cap funds have run up about 50% over the last 1 year, given the run-up lately in the last 2 months specifically. Now, the difference between the top performer and the bottom performer is very stark. Birla Sun Life Pure Value Fund is up 78%. That's one of the strongest funds. One of the weakest funds is SBI Emerging Business. It's up 16%. Why is there such a large difference, Dhirendra, between the top performer and the worst performer?
In the mid-cap fund category, the averages don't matter. There are always big outliers, and this is clearly, and they see extreme cyclicality. If you look at the one which is at the bottom, the Magnum Emerging Business Fund, this was among the best performing fund last year, and some of the ideas didn't work. So in case of, and Birla Pure Value Fund, it's value orientation. It's, some of the bets into something which has gone up very rapidly, has been one of the drivers of this fund. So it is very difficult to guess which one, what will be the key driver of the mid-cap fund. But that apart, I think the biggest thing is that this is not now. It is always like this. If you look at the mid-cap category, the difference between the best performing fund and the worst performing fund is always very big. That is not so in case of large cap fund. That is not so in case of any of the fixed income funds. So here I feel that the fund manager has a big role to play. Selectivity matters. The fund managers have a large universe to operate in, and but it is very difficult for investors to guess. And investors should make sure that they are not chasing the fund which has the best performance in the recent times, because it could be the result of a accidental or a freak performance, which is very difficult to capitalize on. Take the live example. The worst performing fund happens to be the best performing fund of last year.
But Dhirendra, how dependent are mid-cap funds' performance on the fund manager in particular? Because when we pick a large cap fund, we don't pay as much attention to the fund manager. But in a mid-cap fund, is it more important?
It is dependent on the fund manager very much. And in fact, no other equity fund category has the kind of leeway which a mid-cap or a small-cap fund manager has, simply because the number of your universe of stock in which you have to keep an eye on. You can bet and you can evaluate. Running a large-cap fund is pretty straightforward. You decide what to keep away. Your universe is very well defined, not going beyond 50-60 stocks. Even an underweight on a sector and overweight on some sector can create the whole alpha. Not so much in this case, because here the universe could be about 600 stocks. There could be, and the challenge of liquidity which you have to face. So it is a very fine balance. I think the brilliance of a fund manager is certainly reflected in managing a mid-cap fund, and a mid-cap fund which is able to deliver return with consistency. I think that really shows the brilliance of a fund manager. Than I would not take away the performance of large cap funds or large cap stocks selection, but I think this is hard, and this is where the breadth or depth of understanding it gets proven.
Well, Dhirendra, then tell us this. How should we choose a mid-cap fund? Should we choose based on who the fund manager is, on what the returns are? Give us a checklist that we can use.
One is that, before choosing a mid-cap fund or before deciding to invest in a mid-cap fund, you should make sure that, you have the appetite for the ups and downs. And when I mean ups and downs, people just, investors only think of the ups and not the downs, and but that could be quite unnerving. So the biggest reason why you should invest in a mid-cap fund, ensure that you have the appetite. If you don't have it, keep away. Otherwise, it could be very disappointing, unnerving, and wealth destroying action. Once you decide that you have that, then make sure that you are investing in a fund for a full market cycle. The finest of mid-cap funds have do very poorly If you look at 2013 or a year like 2009, just to get you a sense of how bad can it get. In 2008, the mid-cap funds actually went down by nearly 65-70%, and some of them could not recover after that. Many of them have been able to recover. Now they're in positive territory. They have given a great return subsequently. And if you're not able to withstand that, if you're not able to stay put at that point, your losses will be permanent, and you'll be out of equity market for a lifetime, which could be very which may not be a very wise thing to happen to any investor. So be careful and be there for a full market cycle, and don't chase past performance. In case of mid-cap funds, I see there is a great tendency that one can ride the momentum, something which has gone up by 80% in a brief period of time, even if you are able to ride the tail end of the momentum. But most of the time when investors get excited by such performance, they are they are boarding at the wrong time.
All right, Dhirendra, let's take a few questions from viewers who've written in. Nilesh has written in. He invested in UTI Opportunities, IDFC Premier Equity, Reliance Equity Opportunities. Now, he wants to know if these are the funds that will give him good returns over the long term. Are these the right funds? A few of those funds you normally have recommended on the channel. Would you recommend he continues investing in all of those funds?
Yes, I think your fund selection is outstanding, and if you are able to resist the temptation of not getting into any racy fund, these funds will give you excellent returns. Going by the phase of market we have just entered into, be disciplined, don't add any more funds, don't get tempted by the performance of short-term performance of the small and mid-cap funds, or some thematic fund or an infrastructure fund. Be at it, stay on course, be regular, maybe increase your amount of investment you're making in these funds itself.
All right, Dhirendra, many thanks for joining us and offering us your advice. If you have a question for Dhirendra Kumar, email ID is on your screen.